The Canon EOS R5 Mark II offers many enhancements over the Mark I, but we've uncovered a few, how shall we say, annoying opportunities for improvements. Concerns that negatively impact our workflow. Sadly, the cripple hammer is still alive and it's hiding in the storage section, limiting the storage capacity to 2 terabytes. But there's more. But before we get to the details, please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything, helps this channel grow, and keeps you up to date on the latest camera coverage. The Canon R5 II is a very powerful camera. I've ordered one, and I did so because it's going to improve my workflow and my work. A stacked sensor, Canon Log 2, a better thermal architecture, much improved subject tracking, a full-size HDMI port, and video up to 8K 60 frames per second. And despite the R5 II being capable of 8K video up to 60 frames per second, Canon decided to stick with just a single CFexpress Type B card slot, not extending it to dual card slots. But unfortunately, that's not the only place the cripple hammer struck. The R5 Mark II is limited to using CFexpress cards that don't exceed 2 terabytes, just like the Mark I. Why is that important? I shoot a lot of 4K fine, and when I'm shooting in the remote locations deep inside Canada with subjects like these, I often bump things up to 8K to provide me with more opportunities in post. And I might only end up using a few minutes of footage. These scenes here, these are the results of shooting these bears for almost an hour. It's not uncommon to shoot for long durations, and we do that so we never miss the moment, that once-in-a-lifetime moment. And when it comes to switching out a battery, it takes time, and it also makes noise. Sometimes a lot of noise. And the same thing can be said for switching out storage cards. It takes time, and again, it makes noise. And when you're shooting wildlife, especially wildlife like bears, making noise and surprising them isn't always a good thing. The last thing you want is unpredictable wildlife with you at the center of their attention. The R5 II has a 51 minute per terabyte, which limits me to 1 hour and 42 minutes. That's 8K 60 raw light, or 8K 30 frames per second raw. So why can't I switch out cards? And yes, I can. Now obviously you don't want to spook wildlife, you don't want to make any noise, but let me put it to you in a slightly different way. As a photographer using a battery grip, why do you use a battery grip? Well, the hint is right in the name. You have multiple batteries in there. So what you can do is extend your record times. Whether you're covering the Olympics, whether you're doing a fashion shoot, whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're doing, you want to be out there shooting. You don't want to be thinking of how much battery life I have left. And even if you get down to 50%, you might end up with less amperage. You might be limited to some of the functions you can do. By using a battery grip, you extend the amount of time you can shoot. You're no longer thinking about range anxiety when it comes to the battery. And the same thing comes to the storage cards. Larger capacity cards allow us to shoot uninterrupted, reducing the risk that we'll miss the shot, a scene, or a moment. Keeping our minds focused on our subjects rather than the gear. Just think of the odds. What are the odds that I'll be able to get up close to bears like this again and come out unscathed? Silence is paramount. Running out of space, having to switch cards that makes noise and takes time is an issue. The new battery grips offered by Canon with the R5 Mark II certainly solve the problem of, well, battery range and, of course, thermal architecture, allowing you to record longer before overheating. But an arbitrary 2 terabyte limit, well, that can't be overcome. And I know what you're thinking. I could have the R5 fill up the CFexpress Type B card and then automatically switch over to the SD card. But there's several inherent issues there. One, I lose redundancy, and that's a bit of an issue. And yes, I know with 8K 60, 8K 30, with everything other than IPB, or long op as it's now called, I lose that redundancy as well. But this would have me lose that redundancy in all modes, including 4K fine. And the other issue is, well, SD cards are just very, very slow. It takes an awful lot of time to grab the content off the cards. And the third and final issue that at least affects my workflow, doing so limits me to 3 terabytes. All Canon has to do is to update the firmware in the R5 Mark II to support the GUID partition table. And I can go ahead and use my 4TB card, this one here, further extending my record times, but also reducing the risk that I might surprise my talent, such as bears in this case. Not only reducing the risk of not getting the shot, but also reducing the risk that they're going to see me and take more interest in me instead of what they're currently doing. So what about CFexpress 2.0? Why doesn't Canon support Gen 4 or even Gen 3? Why is Canon using a 2019 standard when Gen 4 was released in 2023? Well, actually, CFexpress 2.0 is the latest version of the standard. 2.0, that's in reference to the standard, and that hasn't changed. 2.0 is the most current. You see, the generation, being Gen 3 or Gen 4, has nothing to do with the standard. It instead refers to the supported PCIe interface. To be more precise, Canon should have said that they support CFexpress 2.0 Gen 3. Giving us Gen 4 would have increased the read and write speeds of the card, but it wouldn't have extended the storage capacity. Are you still confused about this? It took me a little while to get comfortable and understand all the different standards related to the storage cards in the Canon EOS R5. But to refresh, CFexpress 2.0 is the latest standard for CFexpress cards. When CFexpress 2.0 came out in 2019, what it did is provide support for CFexpress Type A and Type C, and call the existing Type B, because prior to 2019, it wasn't called Type B because there was only one type of CFexpress card. The R5 uses CFexpress 2.0 with the Gen 3 specification. That means that the card can approach a maximum write speed of 1.8 gigabytes per second. Theoretically, it could go 2 terabytes, but right now the maximum speed that we see on the marketplace is right around 1.48 gigabytes per second. But the newer Gen 4 PCIe specification for CFexpress cards would support a maximum read speed of around 3.6 gigabytes per second, although theoretically it could go as high as 4 gigabytes per second. And if I gave you a choice and asked you if you wanted Gen 3 or Gen 4, you're obviously going to say, well, I want Gen 4 for a number of reasons. One including it has a higher sustained write speed and a read speed. But if we take a look at video specifications on the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, it tops out at 8K 60. Now if it did 8K 120, it would only need a sustained write speed of 850 megabytes per second. That's well under the speed limit for Gen 3. And when it comes to 30 frames per second lossless RAW, again, Gen 3 is more than fast enough. So where does Gen 4 benefit us if we had it in the camera? Well, if we had a computer that was fast enough, where your card reader had direct access to a PCIe slot with at least 2 lanes, well, then yes, you could benefit from that if everything between the card reader, the computer, and the bus supported Gen 4. So at this point, having Gen 3, I wouldn't really consider it a limitation on the R5 Mark II. Even though you can find Gen 4 cards out there, what you're doing is you're paying a premium for speed that most likely you're not going to benefit from. FAT, whatever version of FAT you're using, is limited to around 2 terabytes. Whereas GPT supports sizes up to, are you ready for this? 9.44 zettabytes. So what's the purpose of this video? Why put it out there? Is it an educational video to explain what CFexpress 2.0 is? The difference between Gen 3 and Gen 4 and how it relates to that standard? And why do we have that 2 terabyte limit? Well, it serves multiple purposes. It serves those purposes, but most importantly, it's an opportunity with me, with all of you watching, with all the subscribers, to create noise so that when Canon's figuring out what they can do with their firmware updates, is to give us support for larger capacity cards. I don't need 9.44 zettabytes, but to be able to use 4 terabyte CFexpress cards, or 8 terabytes, or 16 terabytes when they come out, that could certainly prove beneficial. And it's not like I'm asking for something that isn't already on the marketplace. Well, the Nikon Z9, it supports that 4 terabyte card that I have. Canon, come on. Surely if the Nikon Z9 will support larger capacity cards than 2 terabytes in the Nikon Z9, you can clearly allow us to do that in cameras such as the R5 Mark II. And I can understand some reasons why you might not be doing this, but it really gets in the way of our workflow. It's really annoying. I mean, Sony doesn't do this. In almost every camera that they have that has dual card slots, they support the CFexpress Type A as well as UHS-II card slots. Please issue a firmware update. As you're planning firmware updates, make this one of those changes. Support GPT, support larger capacity cards, 4 terabytes and even higher. Trust me, it's one of those things that a good few of us definitely need. And I can bet you the market size for this is larger than the market size for the Canon EOS R1. But there is something else related to CFexpress Type B card slots. Leading up to the R5 Mark II, there was clearly a large segment of the population that was looking for dual CFexpress Type B card slots. Now with the R5 Mark II already announced, well, obviously that ship has sailed. But the R5 Mark III is 4 years away. Canon, please give us dual CFexpress Type B card slots in that camera. Start designing it. And look, I get it. Some of your bean counters and your marketing people might say, look, if we give them dual CFexpress Type B cards in the R5 III, they're not going to buy the R1. And that's simply not the case. You've already designed the R1 to be aimed at sports and news photographers. Those are your own words. We know that. We get that. And with the R5 Mark II outselling the R1 by a 10-to-1 ratio, you're not going to be taking anything away from that camera. 24 megapixels versus 45 megapixels. 8K 60 versus 6K 60. They're very different cameras. Giving us dual CFexpress Type B card slots is really going to help us with our work and our workflow. It gives us complete redundancy regardless of whatever mode we're shooting in, whether it's stills, whether it's video, whether it's 8K 60, whether it's 4K 30. Whether it's fine, whether it's raw, whether it's S-RAW, whether it's cinema raw light, it doesn't matter. And it's not going to take away from the R5C. I know your marketing folks will tell you that as well, but when it comes to the R5C, the biggest selling point you've got there is it's truly a cinema camera with a cinema operating system. And not only that, that camera will go hours upon hours upon hours without overheating. The R5, you need only give us a few hours because at the end of the day, the R5, be it the R1, or sorry, the Mark I, the Mark II, or the Mark III, it's still a stills hybrid camera, though it has very good video capabilities. So please take this seriously, and to help you think through this, I'm going to be ranting on this for the next 4 years. Well, the next 4 years until we have a change. Now, with a firmware update for support of larger capacity cards, I'll stop the rant once you provide us with a firmware update. But for the dual CFexpress Type B cards, well, I'm not going to stop that rant. I'm not going to start bringing up video after video until you tell us that the R5 III will have it or the R5 III's released with it. And you don't put it in the R5 III, well, I'll keep going another 4 years. I'll keep going until, well, my heart kicks out or I stop doing any other work. Well, no, even in my death, I'll still be working hard. I'll just be feeding the plants and insects in the ground. But on that interesting note, I want to say a special thanks to you for watching at home, for contributing to this channel. Every time you pre-order something like the R5 II or the R1, or you purchase using my affiliate links in the description down below, it helps support this channel. That provides the bulk of the revenue for this channel. It's what keeps us on the air. So a big thanks to you. But also when it comes to these rants about the, well, support for larger capacity cards, dual CFexpress Type B card slots, where you have an opportunity, rant as well. When you're talking to Canon, provide extra feedback. They have a place in their help desk software, in their support software, their CRM software, to take down other information. The more we mention it, the more we bring it up, the more likely they're to do something about it. Now, there is a chance that they could increase the cost. Yes, there is a chance. And there's also a chance that this could further reduce record times. There's a chance. But with any issue, there's always an opportunity to solve it, to solve the problem. And I'm sure that Canon can do that, deliver dual CFexpress Type B card slots without it generating an awful lot of heat, without it reducing the record times any further than they are today. And as far as extending the capacity of the cards, that's an easy one. Heck, I could write the update in the firmware myself, but I don't want to risk bricking my own camera and then not having it supported. Not at $4,300. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, a great week, and we'll see you again soon.